had us for the last couple of weeks working on a little bit of a preparation for a pose known as crow. And crow pose is sometimes it's a difficult pose for all of us. And it's not necessary that we get into the pose today. It's absolutely important. But if you want to work with it and practice with it, it is an interesting pose to practice with. And if you plan on doing at the end, you'll have the opportunity to do a more traditional crow. If you have a pillow or something so that as you're folding forward, the pillow's there to comfort you, that's often a very good thing. But not to worry, traditional poses, especially those that are more advanced, they seem a little scary because they're so unusual, but there's methods in getting us into them. And so we're going to use some really nice methods to work these shoulders. So we've warmed up the shoulders a bit, roll them a little bit one way, make sure, roll them the other way, turn them in and out, and make sure that there's nothing about them that right now is giving you caution. And if there is a cautionary sensation in the shoulders, you're just going to do the amount of what I'm going to have you do in a comfortable way. So let's come into a tabletop. For right now, this is the part that I think everyone will find perhaps rather comfortable. I'm in a tabletop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch my hips backward and walk my hands a bit more forward until my elbows come down. And we were doing this during our sun salute. We were in this child pose, this downward puppy position. And so this is a good stretch, and it's a great place to go into to take the weight off of wrists and to just give you a little bit of a break. And so what I'm going to do to start things off is I'm going to get my arms in a placement. I'm going to come forward so that my shoulders are over my elbows. And my right hand, I'm going to move it backward until it now takes the space where my right elbow was. But more than that, I'm going to turn the elbow outward so my fingers turn toward the midline. Now this allows me to press my right hand nice and flat and firm and still keep my right elbow in a bend. Now for my left arm, I'm just going to turn it so that my left hand gets closer to my right hand. So both hands are basically toward the right side of the mat. And now as I can lean to the left, so I can bear weight on the left arm and take some of the pressure off my right hand. And so go ahead and do that. Just lean and put a little pressure on that left arm and see what things feel like, and just take a breath. And then we're going to return to the starting position. So we're just going to go back to the hips sinking backward and the arms stretch forward. And we're going to do the hand placement on the other side because I want you to really understand it. Okay, so I'm coming back into the shoulders over the elbows, and I'm going to move my left hand backwards so that the hand comes to the place where its elbow was, and I turn the hand slightly inward so that left elbow is pointed out to the side. And then with my right arm, I just swing it closer to the left hand. And I can move the weight very easily onto the right arm, and pushing my left hand down, I don't have to hold as much weight on that left palm. And so I've got some nice brace work on the right arm. And then we're just going to come back on to center. Now, if that's the limits of what your shoulders want to do today, that's some great work, okay? That's going to get you a nice little workout for the shoulders, but I'll let you add on pieces as seems comfortable. So here again, my starting position is actually the shoulder over the elbow. And this time I'm going to add a little weight to it. So I'm going to back the right hand up, turning the palm so the fingers are pointed inward. I'm going to move my left arm so that the hands are close together. I'm going to lean to the left, and then I'm just going to lift my right knee up and see if I can just place that knee on the back of my right arm. And I'm still leaning to the left to take some more weight. I may have to adjust until it feels just right. Breathe deep, and then we're just going to come back and stretch back and just take a brief break. But if you're ready, we're going to go to the other side. So shoulders over the elbows. Left hand is now backed up, placed where the elbow was. Palm turned slightly inward. The right arm's adjusted. And these are adjustments that we'll modify a little bit. We're going to go to the right side. We're going to take that left knee now and bring it to the back of the left arm. And just try and bear some weight against that right elbow line so that we're not just putting all the weight on the left hand. And then we're going to come back and stretch. And so that might be, you say, okay, that was challenging enough. I don't want to go any further. And that's perfectly fine. You may not know that you want to go further or not until you attempt the next thing. And that's okay. So if you find that I'm asking you to do something and it goes beyond what you're wanting to do today, then just go back to something that you were willing to do. And I'm just going to start us off so you can find your way into it. So Here I am, shoulders over the elbows. The right palm is placed, turned inward. The left hand comes closer. I'm going to lean to the left. The right knee is going to come onto the back of the arm. But this time, if I want to, I not only lift my left knee off the ground, but I push my chest back toward my left leg. And that, oh my goodness, that makes things very interesting and tough. Okay, and so we'll stretch backward. Now, you may have a lot of flexibility. You may not feel that it is a problem at all. You may be saying, well, that wasn't hard at all. Good. Okay, back onto those elbows. Now my left hand is turned. My right hand rotates in close. So I'm going to take the weight onto the right arm more. Left elbow coming there. And then I'm just going to not only lift my right knee up, I'm going to push my chest back toward that right leg, breathing deeply. And then I'm going to bring the knee down. And we'll come out of that. Okay. So those are, as you can see, each iteration of this is like a little harder, a little harder, a little harder. Take a moment, just relax the arms for a moment, because I want you to watch the next thing that I do. And you might only be watching this. You may be saying, man, this is just a show for me. You can be rolling the shoulders, you can do some of these things, but don't overwhelm yourself. So here's what I'm going to do next. I'm actually going to start the posture off a little bit differently. I'm going to get the arms in position because that's going to remain. So I'm going to have the elbow down. I'm going to put my hand in position, turning. I'll walk you through it. But before I go any further, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift up into a downward dog position, both feet up, and then I'm going to try and bring my leg and keep my chest pushed backward. And that just brings a slightly greater level of effort into it. So if you want to join me for that, the work that I'm going to do with the first part of the arm is suitable for everyone. So we'll stretch back, elbows shoulder distance wide. I'm going to take that shoulder over elbow approach, right hand in the elbow position, left hand pulled in closer. And then if you wanted to, you could just bring the knee to the arm, or you could lift the knees upward, head between the arms, and then bring the right knee toward the back of the arm there, breathing deeply. And then coming out of that, the arms stretch forward. Sorry about the dogs barking. And then we can do it again, the shoulders over the elbow, the left pull, turn the right hand broad and closer. And you could just take elbow to knee, or you lift into the downward dog-like position, pushing the chest backward, and then you bring that left knee toward the arm, keeping the chest pushed back, and you breathe. And then we come back down and out of it. And so those are about as close as we could get to doing some modified crow that still gives you a very similar experience to the traditional pose, but is a step-by-step process, because what we're now going to do is see the positioning, the difference between this modified version and what the traditional version wants us to be. Now, in order for the camera to see things best, for me to have room for it, I want you to get a nice side view of things. I'm putting a mat down so that in the actual version of crow, the hands are spread very wide. We had arms shoulder distance wide. Those hands are going to be spread out very wide in the position, because we're going to try and get ourselves into this lovely effect of our arms forming a platform. So as you can see in the crow position, I may have my hands out even a little wider than the shoulders. Everyone's quite individualistic about this, and if you're not familiar with this pose, my suggestion is watch me for a moment or two, try what you'd like to try, and don't do too much. And hang on just a second, let me stop this, because this is, hey, come here, come here, come here. Good. Oh my goodness, the peanut gallery. Okay, where was I? All right, so I was saying that your arm position for actual crow is typically wider. And in order to take care of the idea that we'll be going into a balanced position, I like to use a pillow right where my head would go. And almost everyone who's getting into this position feels like, oh, if I do it wrong, my face is going to mush the floor. Well, having something soft is going to be there. And knowing that you don't have to push yourself hard is fine too. So what would it be like to get in position of actual crow? Well, that hand position that I was having us turn So the hands are not necessarily pointed straight forward, they're slightly turned. It does give us a little bit better of a platform. So it's almost like a bulldog position. I'll show you from the front view. So it's almost like a bulldog position. I've got my hands nice and wide and my elbows flared outward, okay? So what I'm going to do is get my hands in that position, but I won't be kneeling. Instead, I've got to get into a squat position with my weight as much on the ball of the foot as possible. Could I squat with my heels down? Maybe, but weight on the ball of the foot is pretty much what's going to allow me to project forward. You can see already that I'm touching my legs to the back of the arm. And that's what's going to happen. I'm going to place my legs on the back of the arm. Now, a preparation for this is just this squatting position. So how do I do that? Well, pretty much, I have my feet a little wider than hip distance. I bend my knees, I place my hands down a little wider than my shoulders, and I lift my heels up, and then I bend my elbows, and I try and touch my arms, my legs to the back of the arm. And that alone, as we start to just let the body lean forward and lift those hips upward. All right, so that position, just lifting those hips up, that might be all you want to do today. Okay, it's okay. How did I get there? If you want to join me, I stood up, I took my feet a little wider than my hips. I bent my knees forward. I came hands a little wider than the shoulders, fingers turned slightly inward, palms flattened evenly. And I bent my elbows and I lifted my heels and I brought my legs to touch the back of my arm. Now that might be where you're at. I'm going to back my hands up a little closer to me because that's what feels right. You'll have to figure it out. I'm going to push myself and lift my hips. I push forward, taking pressure onto the hands. It's unavoidable for this pose. I'm going to lift my heels and dip my head down low. Okay. Now that might be as far as you want to go. If you want to go further though, you come forward and you just take one foot up off the floor and then you put it back down again. And you come forward and you take the other foot up off the floor and you put it back down again. Now you're going to say, this is tiresome on the legs, this is tiresome on everything. That is correct. It is. It's a tiresome pose. If you wanted to go further into it, those elbows are pulled back. You're going to have to sort of find your fit. And the more close those arms are to the underarm region, probably the better it's going to be for you. But you lift upward, you take one foot up, and then you see, can you take the other foot up, and then you come back down again. And then you come forward, you just got to dip that head. You lift one foot, you lift the other foot, and then you come back down again. If you've got something in front of your face, you're not too worried about coming all the way down. And you're just trying to take a little bit. You're not wanting to stay up in that pose very long. It is exhausting. It's hard to get compressed into this position. There's a lot of reasons why this pose doesn't work the first, second, third time you try it, along with the I'm afraid I'm going to crush my face into the floor reasons. But that's enough of that, don't you think? I hope you had fun with whatever of the ways that you attempted that, because it is, once you get into it, it's one of those poses, I think, that that is a reasonable challenge to attempt. Mind you, if you've got some wrist problems, you don't want to do that. But the way to it, the pathway we created, would even allow you with some wrist problems with that forearm down method to get something that was similar to, gave you some of the same benefits as a crow, which is going to bear weight on the shoulders. Very good. Okay.